general, we gotta stop looking at stuff as like this linear, like separated. There's chivalry on this side and feminism on this side, and like fuck the middle.
Thank you for joining us on Dating Today, a conversation about modern dating issues. My name is Brock Olsen. This is Carlos and Maraa. They're my co-hosts. And tonight we're going to be talking about chivalry and is it dead?
Add it up.
Right now we have Chattanooga Singles Connect joining us live. They are able to ask questions, join in the conversation. Carlos and Maraa are both the admins to that group. They are fantastic. They help run everything from managing people who are wanting to join to directing conversations, making it a very, very impactful and supportive community. If you're wanting to join, go to get on Facebook, go to Singles Connect Chattanooga, apply to join. You can go to my website, which is brockolsen.com/connect. Submit your application to join there. Usually takes about 24 hours. We get you approved and joined in all of the very, very helpful and beneficial conversations that we're having. We do probably 2, maybe even 3 outings a month. We're joining some of the people that are in this area, just trying to create a really, really, really great community where people are able to share their experiences, grow and become better partners for their future relationships. Now, what we're talking about today is chivalry dead? Now, I'm going to go ahead and just toss this immediately over to Carlos, let him kind of talk about his points of view on chivalry, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a hot topic because it's something that I think gets misinterpreted a lot. I think from modern dating, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, but chivalry and how it's implemented can go wrong and can be misinterpreted a lot, because in its original intent, chivalry was for knights. It was kind of like this social code that they lived by. And what you have to remember is these dudes were slaying dragons, or proverbial dragons, and like killing people, right? Like they were bad dudes. Like these guys were
badasses.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they had to be able to show the other side of character, right? So that was the soft side of who they were. Sure. And when they had the intent to, pursue a princess or whatever we want to call it, right? Yeah, courting somebody, they had to show these qualities. And so that's where it started. And we've obviously evolved. There's no castles, there's no dragons, there's nothing crazy that we're fighting for on a daily basis. Sure. So
I'm fighting for a castle.
right. But my point is that things have evolved since then, and so I think what we're trying to do is kind of clear up the misconceptions. Sure. How do we fill in the gaps between those days and the way that the knights acted and how we feel like we should act as gentlemen in our daily life.
And it's super difficult with what you just said, was how that chivalry then is completely different than what chivalry is today. We don't have to slay dragons. Most of us, we don't have to go to war. We don't have to carry a large weapon to protect ourselves at all times. We don't have to be these ruthless savages 24/7. But what was amazing about chivalry back then was that not everybody was able to do this. So you had your knights who were absolute killers. They were savages, but they needed to be able to blend in with society. They had to be able to be a functioning member of society.
Yeah, you can't kill people.
And you can't just be a ruthless killer. Like, that's not attractive at all. What is attractive is if you're dangerous, but you're civilized. Being able to do all those things, but also be kind, be courteous, be courageous, be just, honorable. Yep. These are the things that I think today we still want to be able to do, but it gets a little bit difficult, especially I'd say the last 30, 40 years with equality and feminism coming into play, especially into the dating world. I mean, it's difficult being a guy trying to show chivalry, because I mean, we all know that we've seen and heard examples where it's kind of being thrown back into our face, or it's being told to us that it's a sign of toxic masculinity. It's like, hey, women don't need to be saved. And we're just like, well, but that's not what we're trying to do. This is just like our, it's almost like a default to us at this point. And being told you're not supposed to be doing that, it's very, very difficult and very, very, very confusing. Maraa, obviously, you're dating, and surely you appreciate chivalrous actions. Surely.
Absolutely.
And I think most women do to an extent. There's just, sometimes I think ideologies can kind of cloud the way that we're able to receive good intentions. And let's make this very clear. I think chivalry is good intentions. It really is. I don't think anybody is really trying to be chivalrous and hurt anybody.
Right.
And that's really where we're having some issues. But do you want to talk to us a little bit about like how, as a woman, you see chivalry, but also like feminism today and how they kind of coexist?
Sure. So as far as like feminism goes, or let me back up. Chivalry. I personally feel like, that's something that's in a modern term now, what we kind of go as, we call it as a gentleman. A guy who is, again, acting in society appropriately.
Right.
He's not shoving his wang in every little thing, and he's not out here sporting like how he can beat up every guy on the street. We don't need to see that.
Right.
We know you can do that.
Yep.
We know most men can kick your ass at the bar.
For sure.
I think for the most part, like what we want to know in a modern term for being chivalrous is how do your actions, how do you as a person convey to women on that softer side? So sure, you're strong, sure you are a breadwinner, sure you can bring all of these things to the table, but do you have empathy? Like, is that, can you show emotion? Do you have emotional masculinity there too.
Sure.
All of these things.
Because that requires strength. Being able to show your emotional side as a man is a strength. It's not a weakness.
Absolutely. And I think that's something you don't really see very often. And that's because it is a thing of the past in that men were not allowed to show emotion. Men are not allowed to cry. They're not allowed to discuss their weaknesses. And today that's changed. This world is completely different. And, now women are like, but we want to know. We want to know. We like, if you cry, sold. Like, shed a tear. But, and there's a fine line to that. And I'm kind of joking a little bit, but there's a fine line to that. Like, I don't want a guy that cries at every drop of the hat either.
Right.
Like, as a man does not want a woman to be crying over every little thing. Like, it's, again, how you can act appropriately in certain settings. And I think like that's how chivalry works. And, for me, a guy that opens the door, I love to see it.
Sure.
If you see anyone, man, woman, carrying heavy items, just the act of offering, hey, can I help you with that? Or, hey, let me get that. I love it. And I will almost always say, please take it off my hands. Like, I'll happily guide you wherever I need to go and let you carry that box.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think that's where feminism crosses that line and it gets a little blurred. And it's like, well, if a guy asks me, or if a man's like, hey, I asked this lady to carry a box and she said, F you. And I'm like, what the hell did I do wrong? It's like, you did nothing wrong.
Sure.
And I think people think that feminism is a big F you to men. And really, it's not an F you to men. It's an F you to society. It is bringing awareness to the differences and inequalities to women. So saying, like, the expectations that women have, cooking, cleaning, taking care of the children, being a housewife, getting an education, all of these things all of the odds that are stacked against us, looking a certain way, dressing a certain way, talking a certain way, acting a certain way, all of these things that are, kind of opposed to us, getting paid at a rate way lesser than men, things like that. That's what we're trying to bring. Those are injustices. That's what we're trying to bring to the table and say, even that playing field.
Sure.
Absolutely.
It is not to say, because someone asked me to, if they could open the door for me, that I need to tell them, no, I can open a door. Like, of course you can open a door. And if you feel so inclined to open the door, you can just say, hey, I got it.
Yeah.
No, it's okay, I got it. No one's going to be mad at you for saying, no, it's okay, I got it. It's just the act of being able to ask that without a woman being upset, and with a man getting his feelings too hurt. And I think that's something also that we have to discuss is men, to me, I feel like toxic masculinity comes across on that term is when women always have to walk around eggshells for you guys and not hurt your feelings and not hurt your masculinity, not make you feel like your ego is going to be bruised. Guys, toughen up, get a tougher skin. Like, I'm like, these women out here, we're tough. Like, stop treating us like we're not tough. We don't need to be saved, like you said. It is the whole idea of like, what I could say to my girlfriend, sometimes I can't say to you because you're going to cry about it. Like, and I don't mean like boohoo. I mean, like, you're going to get an attitude. You're going to get upset because I've offended you. And I'm like, stop being so fucking offended. Like, get over yourself. Like, your ego does not matter at all, really. Neither does mine. Like, let's even that playing field to me. And like, that's where, to me, you kind of take out the harshness of feminism, because you can ask a guy if he is a feminist and he would say no, probably because he doesn't even know what feminism is. And you ask a lady if she is a feminist and she's like, yes, she probably still doesn't even know what feminism is.
Right.
Like, a majority of us don't.
Right.
Get an education, or at least read some articles and figure out what that means before you say yes or no. Honestly, all men should be feminists.
Sure. And everybody here at this table is like, we do support equal opportunity, equality, equal pay. Every single thing a man has, a woman should be able to have the access to. Everybody here at this table 100% supports and believes that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the separation between the ideals, right? And the first wave, or what people kind of like started into, and the second wave that maybe has been a little bit detrimental, where it has been a little bit aggressive. Like, it has been a little bit more social media driven, like, fuck you, man, in meme forms. And what we have to kind of understand, and this is a completely different conversation, but satire, which that is, never actually fixes anything.
Right.
And so that's where it has gotten aggressive. And you see satire with politics, you see satire in everything. It's just that aspect. So I'll back off that, because like I said, that's a much bigger conversation. But Maraa, one of the things that you touched on in there, and one of the things that we've kind of gone over in our conversations leading up to this, is the aspect of like being nice with some sort of intent, or being chivalrous with some sort of intent, right? So can you talk a little bit about situations where you've noticed somebody become chivalrous because they're like, oh, they like me now, and like now they're being extra nice? And is there a line, right? Like, is sometimes that little bit of flirting, like, is that okay, or is it too much? Yeah,
I think I see it in reverse to what you said.
Okay.
So what I typically see is, and I would say most women see, is they go out on a first or second or third date or fifth date, whatever, and the guy like opens the door to the car. He like, he kind of shows up in a way. And then once he kind of feels like he's got it in the bag, like, oh yeah, she likes me, she's already expressed these, whatever. Well, then he stops opening the door for her. He stops waiting. There's all these things. And like, for me, I'm like, wait, why don't you open the door anymore? Because I'm like, that's the type of stuff that like really melts me. Because I'm like, he just cares. Like, there's just a level of care that this guy just always, like, walking, like, they always say walking on the side of the road, or you're walking on a sidewalk and the man's always on the outside towards the road. I walk with men all the time, and I'm not judging on you. No, but like, when I know that we start walking and you're like, wait a minute, get over here, then I'm like, oh my gosh, he cares. I'm like, oh, he knows. He knows that like I should be on the inside, and it has nothing to do like I should be. It's like, it's just like, that's the chivalrous thing to do, because a man should be trying to protect his woman, because a modern woman as well, like, they are always and have always been, in all decades, protectors of their men, just quiet protectors. And like, that's kind of where I feel like we lie generally. And for us, we want to see a physical aspect of protection, and to me those are like little things, and I like that. But what I find, like you said, is, or that you had mentioned, is like, do I see them pretending to be chivalrous or starting with acts of chivalry, and then it dies. And I say, yeah, I haven't seen anyone intently be chivalrous to score a person. But then on the backside, I'm like, well, maybe that's why they were doing that.
Oh no, I've definitely seen it.
So
I've definitely seen it, and think you and I actually talked about this in the last podcast when somebody submitted a question. It was about how do you evaporate the sexual tension on the first date, and you're going out on a dinner date. I was like, so a guy paying on a first date is chivalry,
right?
It is chivalry, and with that, a guy is going to somewhat have an expectation.
Okay.
So
yeah, you're right.
There is that. Now, when a guy is, like Maraa gave a fantastic example, walking down the sidewalk and he's on the street side, he has no benefit there. There's nothing that he has to gain by doing that thing. I think that is just an opportunity for him to step into his masculine nature, and it feels good. And most times it's very natural. But yes, you definitely have people that will use chivalry or that type of dynamic to gain the upper hand, and I think that's also why we see so many hardcore feminists rejecting chivalry. This happened this summer. I was at my apartment. I was actually there's a breezeway and there's two opposing doors. One's to a marketing company. A gentleman was holding a door for a woman, and she said, "I don't need you to fucking hold the door." They were perfect strangers, and she spoke to him like that. Now, I have no idea why she spoke to him like that, but do you think he's going to think about it next time? Do you think he's going to maybe not hold the door next time? Because this is actually what a lot of guys are experiencing. I've never experienced it. I have, however, multiple times, and guys have experienced this, where we will hold a door, woman just walks in, says nothing,
no, thank
doesn't
you.
look at you, doesn't acknowledge you, just keeps going as though it's an expectation.
As if that door was a revolving door,
Right.
and she just glided right through it. And I think you're right. There's women who have expectations of that. And to me, those women are women, and I would say they're a generation older than us, maybe even twice generation. And I'm not calling anyone old, but they grew up, and that's what their parents taught them, is to, a man always opens the door. A man always carries everything, or, carries your books or carries your boxes, or, he always walks on the side of the street.
Or he always pays.
He always pays. Yeah, he always pays. He's always doing these acts, what I would consider acts of service, and it's expected. And if he doesn't do those, I've heard people say, well, we went on a date and we got to the place and he parked and he didn't open the door, so I just sat in the car. And then he couldn't figure out why I didn't get out of the car because he didn't open the door. And I always think to myself, that's so interesting. I'm like, why wouldn't you get out of the car? Because you can open the door yourself.
Sure.
All these things. And they're like, well, it's the principle. Like, he should be doing these things for me. And I think, well, is that how you want to start a relationship?
Sure.
Do you want to start a relationship built on a man who should be doing things for you? Or do you want to build it on a relationship on the idea and of that you guys should be doing things together, and that it should be a team effort? And, when he does these things to you, that you respect him and that you are appreciative of those things, as he should be of you. When you get up early and make a pot of coffee, or you get up and you cook dinner, or you do the dishes and you do the laundry, I would expect the same appreciation of a man, vice versa in these roles. And so, yeah, I think that's completely insane.
Yeah. I mean, it was very, very difficult to watch. I mean, Carlos, have you ever experienced like that type of a reaction to an act of chivalry that you just thought was just like knee-jerk being civil?
No, I haven't had the negative response. I've far more often had the response that Maraa's talking about, where it was an expectation. Now, I feel like in the South, we experience that a good bit more than...
Yeah, we're Southern charm.
Exactly.
Sure.
And so we're a little bit more entrenched in that. But no, I've never had like somebody go crazy on me.
I think that's wild. I'll be honest. I just think that's wild. And ladies, if you're that person, grow up. Honestly, just grow up.
She was probably 26.
Yeah, grow up.
And I see and I hear these stories from a very younger, woke demographic, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about wokeness some other time.
Being woke.
But yeah, that young age demographic
Yeah.
that's very entrenched and has been socially woke in feminism, and I think we're all capable of taking ideologies to a little bit of an extreme.
Yeah.
And again, feminism is about equal opportunity, equal rights, equality, period, equal. And it's very difficult to expect men to provide the chivalry in that dynamic. If you want equality, you got to bring chivalry yourself.
Right.
I think women
gotta
need to do that. I mean,
It's got to be equal.
Yeah, and it's going to be
gotta-
different in every relationship. And this is, I was going to say this earlier in your example, Maraa, because the woman who's sitting in the car expecting somebody to come open the door for them has an unspoken expectation.
Right.
They haven't come to the table and said, hey, I would really love it if you would open the door for me. It makes me feel special. I feel like it sets the mood for our date. It really
Makes me feel cared for.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes me feel like
whatever
Yeah.
it makes her feel. But she's
100%.
honest about that. They're at the table together. It's 50-50. And now the man can feel empowered. Oh, now I know what she wants, what she needs, what helps her feel cared for and
Right.
special. And because I care for her, and because I want to show my intent towards her, I'm going to come to the table and be right there with her and execute.
Yeah.
And I think it's that opportunity to be 50-50 and really put your cards out there and be like, this is what I think a relationship should be. And if the other person doesn't match that, then cool. Then now we have another barrier and you can go and live your life and I'll live mine. But to have that unspoken expectation, and we've talked about that now on all 4 podcasts, is like this unspoken expectation that gets to the heart of like almost destroying every relationship.
Yeah.
Like, no, let's just talk.
And everybody
Figure
has
this
different
out.
expectations in
Yeah,
dating.
and-
Everybody's dynamic's completely different.
Yeah.
I've been married before. That dynamic is so totally different from the dynamic that I live right now. And it's because we communicated what our needs and what our expectations were. And had we not had that very healthy form of communication, we wouldn't be where we are now. No, that's absolutely perfect. So with knowing feminism is very, very, very entrenched in society and we all support it, do you think chivalry is even necessary? If feminism is about equality and we're all equal, do men need to be showing up doing chivalrous acts? And we are speaking strictly dating. Obviously, we're not going to get into like the workplace and things like that. That's a much broader thing. But in dating, is it even necessary?
I think so. I mean, at least to me, and maybe it's because it is ingrained in me because I'm in the South, but I absolutely think chivalry is necessary on both men's roles and women's roles.
What does that look like? Women's roles of chivalry. What does that look like? Because that is something nobody's talking. What does feminine chivalry look like?
Call me off guard here with that one.
I mean, well, do we know what that even looks
I
like?
know. I'm like, I kind of
honestly
like, what
think-
does that look like?
I think that's what I was talking about a second ago. It's like that's going to be different in every relationship, right? Like you talked
Or
about
just in
earlier. Like,
general.
yeah, it might be like the guy is making the coffee and making breakfast because he got up early, and that's what, in their relationship, that's chivalry for them. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And maybe the woman likes to drive because he drives all day, and the relationship dynamics just like fit that. And
Right.
it's
Okay.
chivalry. Like we come to this integrated place where the two of us, like man and woman, like just are having a relationship or whatever. Like we're having a relationship and communicating. Like it isn't about like the gender roles. It's whatever the fuck works. Like,
Yeah.
Well, I
and we
also
talked
think
about it.
We've touched
That's
on this
all.
before, and even in the singles group, we've touched on this. And to your point is, what does that look like from a woman's perspective? And a lot of people say, a lot of women have said, can I ask a guy on a date? And to me, that's a little chivalrous because you're
Doing the hard part for him, for sure.
You're initiating though. You're initiating, and like again, a unspoken expectation is we generally always expect the guy to call us back, to ask us out,
Initiate.
all this initiation. And I think an act of chivalry for women could be more initiation. Say, ask them out, plan the date. You guys don't have to wait for the man to do that. Sure. And I've been, I have friends who've been in relationships where the guy maybe didn't. He might have been more on the shy side, or
Sure.
just in general.
Sure.
He never asked out people on dates. He never asked the date, so the date never happened. You just sat there waiting. It's like, well, why don't you just ask them on a date? If you want to go on a date so bad, just ask them on a date. Like, maybe they'll be like, oh my gosh, they care about me, or like, oh my gosh, they want to go out with me,
Right.
you know, and then like, then you pay for the date. Now you're chivalrous, you know, or like whatever.
No, and I think that's absolutely perfect. Is she pays for the date? So if we're talking, you know,
Offer to drive.
that ain't gonna happen. No.
I mean, girls be out there skirting.
I mean, if we're talking equality, then yes, sometimes the woman should offer to pay, and like that should just be social norms. I'm not saying you have to pay every single time by any means. The man still wants to feel like he's a man. He wants to feel like he's contributing, like he's bringing, you know, his resources to the table, because that's what makes him feel whole. And if, as the woman, you're able to step in here and there and take the pressure off a little bit, I think that's fantastically chivalrous. I really, really do. So if a guy's saying like, where would you like to eat? And you're saying you don't know, like that sucks. Have some ideas. Have like make this a little bit easier. Not everything needs to be so difficult for him. And
or help just plan, you know, maybe he asked you out on a date this time and he asked you out again. Maybe you say, yeah, I'd love to go out, but I want to plan this date this time.
Diana does that, and I love it. Every couple months, she will plan a really intricate date, and it's fantastic. She'll tell me where we're going. I'm still driving, and we'll go do the thing. And she takes care of it, and it's lovely. It really, really is.
Yeah. So I guess maybe that's what it would look like from a woman's perspective, and you know, maybe that's something to me. I'm like bringing that to my attention. I'm like, now I want to go home and like, how can I be more chivalrous to men? I'm like, how can I bring that to the table? What am I doing?
Sure.
You know, how can I do this better?
Right.
And I think that is the mindset of dating in general, modern chivalry, you know, and even modern feminism. The idea is like, how can I do things better and bring more to the table and be a more interesting person? You know, and
that's fantastic.
How can I make my dating life better? How can I be better to other people?
Yeah.
You know?
And that's what chivalry is. It's selflessness. At the end of the day, chivalry is an act of selflessness. You're considering other people. You're going out of your way to make other people comfortable. That's kind of what is at the core of that chivalry code. It really, really is. So, Carlos, you think chivalry and feminism can coexist?
Yeah, I think in general, we got to stop looking at stuff as like this linear, like separated. There's chivalry on this side and feminism on this side, and like fuck the middle. Like, no, like the integrated perspective is like we come to the middle, we balance those things out, and like we move forward. And I think generally, like we've been taught to think about things as separated rather than like an idea that can coexist. Like we should be generally, you know, like honorable and courteous and have morals and like have a good social standing with the people around us.
For sure.
That I don't think we have to separate those things now.
Yeah. Be your most authentic self is always a good way to be in dating. So
for sure. And I'll say this, and this might even be one of the closing statements. I'm not really sure how far along we've got, but being able to be chivalrous is, in my opinion, one of the most, it's to the core, one of the most masculine things that we have to bring to the table as men. And when we're not able to do that, when we're told that that's not a very healthy mindset, that that's toxic masculinity, that you're infringing on a woman feeling like she is resourceful on her own, I mean, it's very, very difficult for a man to just know his place in the world. And us men, we all want to feel like we're doing something really, really good with our lives, and we want to feel like we're accomplishing things. And the more that we're able to step into our masculine nature, the more we're able to feel like we're protecting our women, because that is what makes us feel whole. The better, in my opinion, not just society, but our relationships are going to be. It's going to make us feel like we're able to communicate. It's going to make us feel like we're contributing to society as a whole. And I think it's, you know, we completely support feminism, equality, but you have to allow men to be men. You can't hinder that. You can't say being a man is not okay anymore. And I think that's kind of where some of the toxic feminism has bled into. And it just makes it very, very difficult for the men in society to behave and just contribute, not feeling as though every little thing that they're going to do is going to be critiqued or thrown back into their face. And it's very important to be able to express yourself. It's very important as a woman to be able to express yourself as well. Express your masculine side and your feminine side. And obviously men have that as well. But to tell men that that is not okay to be, it's not going to ever work. For sure. Okay, so what we'll do then, we'll just we'll log off with our recording, go to some of these if we have any more questions. Carlos, Maraa, thank you both so much for joining us for this episode of Dating Today, where we were talking about chivalry. Is it dead? Is it? Think it is?
Nah, it's still alive.
It's still alive. We just got to
It's hanging by a thread.
Yeah,
It's hanging by a thread.
Yeah, we're adjusting the definition, but it's still there.
Yep. Fantastic. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.
Add it up.